that was less akin to the Australian asylum model that he's so desperate to replicate, and more in tune with the Australian cricket team during this summer's Ashes. Cross your fingers and pray for rain.
Every time I come to this chamber, it's about the weather. The Honourable Gentleman is becoming the Michael Fish of British politics. He always gets the forecasts wrong.
Hello everyone, and is the government really crossing their fingers and hoping for rain, and hopefully the right type of rain? Sorry, Therese Coffey, couldn't resist. Or is our honest Bob right, and Stephen Kinnock really is as bad as Michael Fish when it comes to hurricanes? Well, that's up for you to decide. Now, this happened during the illegal migration statement last week in the House of Commons.
At the time of the last election, the asylum backlog had already spiralled under Conservative mismanagement, but the number of small boats crossing the Channel was close to zero, as was the number of hotels, emergency hotels, being used. Fast forward 4 years, and we see before us a picture of Tory boats chaos. For the third year running, more than 25,000 people have crossed the Channel in small boats, while the number of hotels being used is around 400, at an eye-watering cost to the taxpayer of £8 million a day, higher than last year. And the government's response, a Rwanda plan, but they've sent more Home Secretaries to Rwanda than asylum seekers, an illegal migration act that's utterly counterproductive and hasn't even brought into full force yet, and a new barge that was meant to bring down hotel costs but has just added to them. And the military bases promised by the Prime Minister last year, December, are still not ready. All of which has left the Prime Minister with an asylum strategy this summer that was less akin to the Australian asylum model that he's so desperate to replicate, and more in tune with the Australian cricket team during this summer's Ashes. Cross your fingers and pray for rain. Surely the Prime Minister knows that this was the wettest summer since 1912. Surely he recognises the impact that this had on small boat crossings. Now, the government also likes to claim to be bringing the backlog down, but it stands at 176,000. And it likes to talk about a legacy backlog. But this is just nonsense. It's a figment of the Prime Minister's imagination. He's taking last year's workload, but ignoring this year's workload. Because the backlog is the backlog is the backlog, Madam Deputy Speaker. You can slice the cake however you want, spin it however you want, but the cake is still the same size. 176,000 in the last quarterly figures, up, not down. And as for those who are being processed and rejected, slowly it must be said, at half the productivity of 7 years ago, are they actually being returned? Removals are down 70% since Labour left office, with a 40,000 removals backlog. Now, on the issue of hotel use, this announcement today really does illustrate better than any other the utter lack of ambition that the Prime Minister has for our country. It beggars belief that the Minister has the brass neck to come here today to announce, not that the government has cut the number of hotels being used, but that it simply plans to, and by a paltry 12%. Is that really it? Is that really the ambition? That there will still be 350 asylum hotels in use at the end of the winter, despite promises last year they would end hotel use this year? A further questions for the Minister. Is it really true that the hotels he's considering closing will be in marginal constituencies? Does he really think the public might not see through that ruse? Will he be publishing a list of the hotels he plans to close over the next 6 months? And finally, why doesn't the Minister come back to update this chamber when he's actually achieved something? Not when he plans to achieve something, or when he's done a small part of what's been promised, but when the Prime Minister has actually achieved what he said he was going to achieve. Because at the moment, he sounds like an arsonist who's burnt our house down and is expecting us to thank him for throwing a bucket of water on it. Better still, why won't this government get out of the way so that we on these benches can show the leadership shown by our leader and our Shadow Home Secretary on their trip to Europol recently, when they set out Labour's plan to stop the Tory boats' chaos by smashing the gangs, clearing the asylum backlog by surging the number of caseworkers, ending hotel use and fixing the asylum system, which successive Conservative Prime Ministers have utterly broken after 13 years of neglect and incompetence. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister. Madam Deputy Speaker, it's all down to the weather again. Every time I come to this chamber, it's about the weather. The honourable gentleman is becoming the Michael Fish of British politics. He always gets the forecasts wrong. The truth is, he can't bear to admit that our plan is actually starting to work. Returns are up. Raids are up. Productivity is up 10 times. And above all, small boat arrivals are down. We are closing hotels. He wants to open our borders. The government will never elevate the interests of illegal migrants over those of the hard-working taxpayers of this country. That is what we hold in our minds every day in this job, and that's the difference between the Labour Party and this government. We used to think that the Labour Party had no plan, but now we know that the Labour Party don't even want to stop the boats. In the summer, the Leader of the Opposition said that even if the Rwanda plan was working, he would still scrap it. How telling was that? How telling was that? Even if we were securing our borders, he would scrap it and wave people into our country. He also said on his fabled trip to Europe that he would strike a new deal with the EU, which would bring thousands of people into the country. The new towns that he announced at the Labour Party conference would be filled with illegal migrants. We will never do that. The Labour Party's strategy is to force the British public to grudgingly accept mass migration. We disagree. We believe that the British public believe in secure borders. They want a robust and a fair immigration and asylum system. Our plan is working. Don't let Labour ruin it.
I spared you the statement from our honest Bob, but from his dog whistling reply, you can only imagine the statement, what it'll be like. It'll be, we are the ones who will protect you from the hooded claw, keep the vampires from your door. We might make you poorer, but you can't have everything, can you? But if you let Labour in, it'll be cats chasing dogs, be raining frogs with biblical proportions, 10,000 years of bad luck, and they will not protect you from the boogeyman. Ooh. What do you guys think? Is our honest Bob really crossing his fingers, toes, and any other part of his anatomy desperate for rain? Or is he right that Stephen Kinnock really is for Labour what Michael Fish was for hurricanes? Let me know down below, and it just leaves me to say until the next time, I shall bid you farewell and take care.